Thursday weather.
Yeah, it's super nice outside, which is honestly a little concerning considering it's December, but let's just roll into some sports right now. So we're going to start off with the Thursday night football game between the Cowboys and the Saints. Look, the Cowboys don't have their head coach. They got Dan Quinn tonight as their coach. McCarthy is out. He's on the COVID list. So, guys, who do you think is winning this game, Cowboys or Saints? I'll start off with Parker.
It's not easy for me because the Saints are down some players. Cowboys are as well, possibly, and they're obviously down their head coach. And Taysom Hill is starting this week for the Saints, which is very interesting. He's making an undisclosed amount of money because his contract numbers just don't make any sense. But I will say, I think this is going to be a throwback to when Dan Quinn was coaching in the NFC South. And I think Sean Payton's going to coach circles around him, just as he possibly would have McCarthy. And I think the Saints take this one at home.
See, I'm going to disagree. I think the Saints are just too battered up. Although Mark Ingram is coming back tonight, I don't think that's going to be enough. Taysom Hill starting will definitely make things more interesting because, well, I don't think Trevor Siemian is that guy. He's not very good. I just think the Cowboys have too much talent, and they're coming off a tough loss, so I feel like they're going to come in and take the W.
Well, look, I mean, this is one of the more improved defenses, probably the most improved defense in the NFL, if I say so myself. The Cowboys are absolutely dreadful. They have very good young talent. Trayvon Diggs, best ball hawk in the league. Maybe not the best coverage corner, or definitely not the best coverage corner, but a great ball hawk. Micah Parsons, probably in the lead for Defensive Rookie of the Year as well. And in my opinion, I think the Saints are losing their three best offensive players, that being Ramczyk, Armstead, two of the O-linemen in the NFL, and then obviously Alvin Kamara. Taysom Hill's versatility, it's going to be interesting to see. Dan Quinn, we know how he was as a head coach. Wasn't great in Atlanta. But the Cowboys are getting their three-headed monster at wide receiver back. Mari Cooper is projected or is supposed to play tonight or be available to play. CeeDee Lamb is confirmed back, and as well as Michael Gallup. So I'm going to take the Cowboys in this one. Yeah.
I'm going to be taking the Cowboys as well, and this is the reason why. So they've been known to dominate on the defensive side of the ball this year. They had a little bit of a crisis on Thanksgiving last Thursday, and I'm sure that they're going to want to bounce back from that. I think as opposed to dominating, I think that they kind of know that the Saints are one-dimensional right now in terms of how they're going to play, because Taysom Hill is going to be a mobile quarterback. They're probably going to give it to Ingram a lot. I think they're going to put their emphasis on getting rid of the run, and I think that's just going to shut down the Saints.
I think I'm also going to go with the Cowboys here. I really think that we can't really underestimate the effect that the return of CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, even though Cooper is supposed to be limited, even a limited Amari Cooper is better than just having Michael Gallup out there as your wide receiver one. When you got all three of those guys out there, you got Ezekiel Elliott back to full health. And, I think that the Cowboys, their defense is going to struggle. Probably, the Saints will pull out a few trick plays, but I think the loss of Mike McCarthy really isn't that big of a deal. I mean, he almost, you could make the argument that he cost him that game against the Raiders, considering he made that, controversial call or didn't challenge it, and they ended up losing that game. But, I think that the Dallas Cowboys having all three of their receivers back, and the Saints especially not having Kamara, I think that the Cowboys will get the edge in this game.
I think the Cowboys find themselves in shootouts a lot. I think that's kind of the way they end up playing a lot of the games. So I think if you're a team trying to beat the Cowboys, that's what you have to do, is get yourself in a shootout. Unfortunately for the Saints, I don't think they have what it takes to get in a shootout. It just seems like they're lacking any wide receivers that can create separation. They're not really too talented on the offensive end, especially in terms of playmakers. So, I don't even think they're going to score more than 10 or so points. So I do got to take the Cowboys, even though they've kind of been in a little bit of a slump their past couple of weeks. But I just got to take the Cowboys for those reasons. All right, so moving on to a huge game, actually. We got Colts and the Texans, of course. This is a game that could go either way. So, guys, let me know what you think. This time, we're going to start on the opposite end. We're going to start off with Nolan. What do you think?
I love the Indianapolis Colts in this matchup. The Houston Texans, obviously, we know that they've struggled up to this point. They've made some games close, but I just think that the Indianapolis Colts are really really too good. I think that they are not a 6-6 football team. We saw them kind of take the Buccaneers to the wire. Granted, they they coughed that game up. Leonard Fournette had a huge 4-touchdown game last week, but I mean, we're seeing them compete with these high caliber teams, and yeah, I can't. I think the Indianapolis Colts, their defense is a little underrated, and I love the Colts in this one. I would expect the Colts to kind of go on like a late season push here, and I would almost say that the Colts could kind of compete for that last wild card spot in the AFC. And AFC, that's obviously very talented with a lot of teams that's wide open.
Well, for me, it comes down to the fact that the Colts can put points on the board and the Texans simply cannot. Even though I'm going to say this, the Colts are it looks like they're going to be a little bit banged up, but I don't think that makes much of a difference. It's literally just Brandon Cooks and then the rest of the high school football team out there for the Texans offense. So I'm going to take the Colts by at least 14.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that Brandon Cooks, their star, is questionable with an illness. He didn't practice today. So, if any sort of miraculous something were to happen, it'd probably be through Brandon Cooks, and right now he's not in the greatest condition. So I think even if he was playing, it might be a 300-yard rushing effort, not from Jonathan Taylor. I love the guy, but 300 yards, that's quite the amount. But I think, maybe pushing a 250, 300-yard total rushing day for the Indianapolis Colts with Hines and JT, maybe Wentz will get some in there. I think Wentz has been having kind of an underrated year. I don't really like him, but he just played so bad last year with Philadelphia. I think he needed a revival. We forget, just a couple of years ago, he was one dive for a touchdown, take that dive for a touchdown away against the Rams, and he's the MVP of football. So, for me, it's not really a debate. Give me Colts by 27.
No, I think Brandon Cooks and Tyrod Taylor are both decent players. With that said, Colts by 21 or more.
I hate to follow the pattern, but Colts losing, coming off the Texans losing to the Jets. They lost to the Jets. Colts by 1 million.
I have a question. How can a team like the Texans beat the Titans and then lose to the Jets the week after?
Well, didn't the Jets also beat the Titans?
I don't know, but the Titans have been choking a lot of games that they definitely should not be choking.
Titans were super beat up in that game, though, too, I think.
Or no, I think it was the Bengals.
Also, Houston's leading rusher has 1,000 less yards.
I don't
than
remember.
Jonathan Taylor.
The Jets win some weird games.
Yeah, the Jets do win some weird games, and the Texans at one point almost tricked me into thinking that they were a little bit better than bad. But no, they're just bad. They're just not a good football team, to be honest. They might be the worst run franchise, arguably, in all of sports, arguably. So yeah, give me a Colts team that just keeps seeming as if they're on the rise. All right, so moving on to our next game, we got the Vikings and the Lions, kind of a similar fashion of a matchup to the Colts and Texans. So guys, what do you think about this one? Let's do Ethan.
So DeAndre Swift, we obviously know he got injured in that game against Thanksgiving against the Bears. He's questionable, but they do have one of the better backup running backs in Jamal Williams, who's pretty serviceable. We saw that in Green Bay, and we saw it last week. 15 carries for 65 yards in the place of DeAndre Swift. And it's weird because both teams just I cannot see the Vikings should the Vikings blow them out? Yes. Are they probably going to? No. I feel like the Lions have just stuck in with every team, and I feel like the Vikings have also stuck with every team. Like obviously, like the Vikings have been known for winning at the last second this year, but I mean, there's such a big difference in talent. Like that offense, even without Dalvin Cook, Alexander Mattison has been a great backup, honestly. He's been, he's maybe not the best backup, but he's been amazing when Dalvin Cook is out, which he is this week. And, Captain Kirk, Jefferson, Thielen, even Tyler Conklin's been on the rise this year. I mean, that offense is too talented, and the Lions just, I don't think they proved me enough that they're, they'll take this win. But I definitely say a one-score game. Not going to be a blowout here. It's a one-score game, maybe, around 3 or 4 points.
Okay, Chris, what's your take?
So I know the trend is this year that the Vikings are in close games, but not every game can be like that. I think as a coach, Dan Campbell is a great hype man. He has his players ready to run through a wall for him. With that said, he is a horrible play caller.
Yeah, he's pretty.
He ran a drop
yeah.
play on a 3rd and 32.
Which, hey, correct me. Let's go to a little side topic real quick. Don't you guys think the draw play might be the worst play in sports? I personally hate the draw play.
It really
I
doesn't
hate it so
I don't
much.
fool
It
anybody
depends. The
anymore.
Bengals run it so well. Oh my gosh. Like they give Joe Mixon like 10, 15 yards on that every time. There's some teams that run it so well. but-
I personally can't stand it. Ever since I watched Jay Cutler and Matt Forte do it and just get no yards, I can't stand the draw play. All right, but back
And
to your take.
also the 2 timeouts in a row thing, like that just he is what I kind of thought he was before the season, which is just a hype man. Like he's those guys. He's like kind of like what Robert Sowell was in San Francisco, but without actual coaching talent. He was just the guy that would like run around the sideline, hyping everyone up, like wearing muscle shirts and stuff. So I think the Vikings, this is going to be their blowout game. They win by 21 points.
Parker, what do you think?
One quick statement back to the draw play that we were talking about. I actually like it a lot more when quarterbacks run it. Like when they go empty backfield, maybe 5 wide, and a quarterback drops back, 3rd and 4 and runs. I actually like that way more than that actual halfback.
To me that makes sense because now you're actually catching the defense off guard.
Right, and a play that, you look at a guy like Lamar, he's going to turn half the pass plays into a run anyway. So that's why I actually love the draw for a quarterback. But I agree. Anyway, back to this game. Screams Vikings. They obviously need a win. Last week, Kirk Cousins lined up under a guard. It was bad luck. It was very funny. They lost, of course, a close game. I agree that not every game should be like that. The Vikings should blow out the Lions. But I made a promise to everyone who listens to this that I would pick the Lions until they win, and I will be picking them this week.
There we go.
Certainly an interesting pick, but I kind of do like it. Drew, what do you think?
I really thought it was Ethan that said that to me, but it was Parker. I called him out 2 weeks ago on that. But anyways, so with this game, offensively the Vikings are way more set up. Their yard difference isn't a whole lot, but the Vikings just have been putting more points on the board. The Vikings have averaged about 27 points a game in the last 5 games, and the Lions have averaged about 15, which is a little lackluster. They both have banged up running backs. Both have banged up defenses. That being said, I'm taking the Lions. I'm taking the Lions because they need it. Might as well. I got nothing to lose there. I'm going to look so smart next Thursday when I say I was right.
Yeah, right.
I'm with you, Drew.
All right, Nolan, what do you think?
Well, as much as I would love to pick the Lions and see them get a win here, I have to go Minnesota here. But I will go in a close one. I'll say Minnesota by 3. I think that, once again, the Lions are going to keep it close. Really, ever since they had their bye week, they've been kind of keeping it close. Granted, they haven't faced the best offenses. They faced the Steelers, the Browns, and the Bears. But they've held everybody to 16 points or less for 3 weeks in a row, which is always impressive when you can do that against 3 straight NFL teams. But you're going up against a top 10 offense here in Minnesota, and the Lions especially. One, they're going to be without DeAndre Swift most likely. Jamal Williams, again, like we said earlier, a serviceable back. But again, that's arguably your top guy right there for Detroit being out, so obviously that hurts. And I think the Lions really just don't cover the pass well. And you've got 2 of the hottest wide receivers in football right now, and a Kirk Cousins who's playing very well, probably the best in his career he's played. And you've got 2 top 10 wideouts almost in Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson. So I think the talent disparity just a little bit too big here. I'm going to go Minnesota, but in a close one by 3.
I'm going to take the Lions as well because honestly, I think it only makes sense. I think if the Lions don't get this game, I don't think they're going to win a game all year. But the last time these 2 teams played, the Vikings won by 2 points. The Lions find themselves in close games, not too often, but look, it happens every now and then. They, tied a game with the Steelers, of course. And to be honest, no other reasoning I have other than it just makes sense versus a bad coaching team in the Vikings. I just don't think the Vikings can get it done. I thought they were going to be an incredible team this year. I thought they were going to compete with the Packers in the NFC North. Surprised they have not. That's just kind of the way Minnesota does things, I guess. But if they want to settle for mediocrity with their coaching, then by all means go ahead. So we're going to move into our next game. That's going to be the Giants and the Dolphins, two obviously powerhouse teams in the NFL. So, guys, what do you think on this one? Giants and Dolphins. Anyone can go ahead this time.
I think with this one, Miami is red hot right now. Like, they're riding, what is it, a 4-game win streak?
I mean, yeah.
Like everyone was saying they're a shoe-in for the Tank Bowl, and all of a sudden here they come back with 4 straight wins. Including, I don't know if I would necessarily call it a statement win, but their win against the Panthers and revived Cam Newton, back from the dead Cam Newton, whatever you want to call him. I mean, at the end of the day, they still scored 33 points on that defense, and that defense for the Panthers is still pretty solid. Even if their offense is suspect at best, no matter who's playing quarterback for them, I got to take the Dolphins in this one.
Real quick, don't you guys just honestly like the Dolphins' defense? Because
Yes.
that's kind of what's carrying them up the past 5 or so weeks. It's been the defense,
It's kind of crazy because Miami's defense, we expected it to be very good. I mean, last season, Brian Flores, he had one of the top defenses, and they were kind of in a playoff push late in the season. I think that they were the first team out last year in the AFC. But they were terrible through their 7-game loss streak. I mean, they were just awful. They were giving up the most yards in the NFL, and now they're just playing fantastic. I mean, I had their defense in fantasy last week, 24 points. Thank you very much, Miami defense. And they've just been red hot in the streak, and they have a super easy schedule. I mean, you look at the New York Giants, I think they're going to win this one. They're too red hot right now, and the Giants could be without Daniel Jones. It could be without 2 of their top wideouts again. The Giants have just been kind of banged up all season on offense. But, I think Miami is going to take this one. I think that their defense kind of carries them through it. Kind of helps some of the, I don't want to say inefficiency, but some of the cons of having Tua Tagovailoa as your quarterback and kind of leading your offense. I think the Dolphins are going to kind of remain hot here. They got the Giants. I think they got the Jets next week. So they got a couple easy matchups, and they could sneakily, they're going to need some help, but they could be a playoff contender when it's all said and done.
All right, Drew, what's your take on this game?
I'm still kind of deciding. I'm not gonna lie, but because everybody's brought up great points on how the Dolphins could make it. I'm trying to see if there's a way that I can justify that the Giants would win it, but I don't think I can. I think the Dolphins are just too hot right now. They got more weapons. The only way that the Giants could win is if Saquon returns to his 2019-2018 form and blows up. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I can't bank on that, so I'm going to take the Dolphins.
All right, Ethan, what do you make of this game?
I'm saying the Giants, and the only reason for me doing so is because I picked all but 2 upsets last week, and I haven't picked an upset this week. That is my reason. I'm going to be honest. That is, if you want me to get into logic, it's Dolphins all the way, but I'm not doing logic right now, so Giants, baby.
Logic doesn't work in the NFL this year, man.
That's a good point. Logic doesn't work. We were talking before the show, just anyone can really win the Super Bowl this year. Any, above average team, honestly, kind of seems like they have a shot to at least win a playoff game. But regardless, Parker, what do you think of this game?
Well, I love us just bringing up that there's no logic, because what it really comes down to is just how much of a matchup game the NFL is. And, you say you have no clue how an outcome happens, but then it's just like a right tackle got dominated by an end that was just a clear mismatch. And that's all it takes sometimes to win an NFL game. And just like game plans, like some teams' schemes working better against defenses that are really good, but maybe they just don't do well against a certain coach. That's why I love the NFL. I'm going to take the Dolphins here. I don't love it. It's not going to be a pretty offensive game. If you're looking for something exciting to watch, this is not it. But I like the Dolphins to maybe make a special teams play. I think, as Nolan said, they see a light at the end of the tunnel where they can get to the playoffs. And with the weak schedule ahead of them, and they're kind of hot, I like their coach Flores. I think that they heard a lot of the disrespect, perhaps, to them early in the year. Although it was warranted, I think they're kind of trying to make their statement now. And Tua's playing pretty darn good. I got to give him some credit. I think it's a little overhyped, but I think he's playing well enough where they can get this one done.
I agree with those same points because I think Tua is finally starting to take somewhat of a corner. Like he's finally, Tua is finally starting to be not the quarterback he was projected to be because, I mean, those ceilings were they're way too high of projections for Tua. It was unfair on him. A lot of people just over-scouted him. They thought about it too hard. But I do like the fact that Tua is starting to get a little more recognition in this league because I do think eventually he can be probably a very serviceable quarterback and maybe even get into that Kirk Cousins type of game manager role. But regardless, I definitely think that the Dolphins are going to take this game. I like what they can do defensively. I don't really like the Giants at all. I think when they fired Jason Garrett, that kind of told you they have no idea what they're doing. They didn't stick with Jason Garrett long enough. They knew what they were getting in Jason Garrett. But to me, just Joe Judge is a bad head coach, shouldn't be coaching this league. And that fire was just a mistake on the Giants' part. So now we're going to be moving into another game, the Buccaneers and the Falcons, an NFC South matchup in a game where the Falcons are certainly trying to make the playoffs. So, Ethan, what do you think about this game?
I mean, I feel like I say it every week. Like, I do not know what I think about this Falcons team.
Because they're bad. They're bad good.
They're not good, but they're 5-6.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't understand. Like, it's very confusing to me. Like, there's Matt Ryan has not been good this year. He's not, obviously, he's getting older, but he's not the Matt Ryan of 2017. I mean, their best running back, really, let's be honest, Cordell Patterson, great, like, Swiss Army knife. He can give you a little bit of running, like, amazing return man, receiver. He's not a good running back.
No,
like,
he's not.
He's not. Kyle Pitts isn't being like thrown to enough, and that's because he's a star. I've seen it and all that. And Buccaneers are coming off a win against the Colts. It's in Atlanta. Like everything in me wants me to pick the Falcons, just because I just can't. Like they're not good. Like I don't know how many times I have to say this, but they are not a good football team. The Buccaneers are one of the more talented teams in the NFL. It wouldn't surprise me if the Falcons just somehow keep this close, but I'm just going to assume they don't and give me Buccaneers by double digits.
All right, Chris, what do you make of this game?
I think the Falcons' defense is horrible. And Tampa Bay, although they have the controversy with Antonio Brown and his vaccine fake card, whatever you want to call it, I guess. And I heard that Cordero Patterson actually is a reserve safety now because he wants to get an interception before his career is over. So he's a safety now, so he truly is a jack of all trades. With that said, I think Tampa Bay wins this game really easily. I think Brady spreads the love around to everybody. Throws 4 touchdowns, Fournette runs for 2. They win about 42-21. I'm with Ethan. I was never sold on the Falcons. I think all of their wins are just... Like, if you look at them, the Giants, it's the Giants. Jets, it's the Jets. Like, don't have to say anything on those.
2 great football teams.
The Dolphins, when they were really struggling, that doesn't really count either. I think that game was in London. It was either that or the Jets game. And then the injury-riddled Saints. And then
that was a good win by the Falcons.
Okay.
Let's give credit to Arthur Smith for dialing up a good game plan. I think that was a good win.
But then their next 2 games, they lose 43-3 and 25-0.
Yeah.
And then they beat Jacksonville. That's not much of a win either.
It's a great team.
I got 42-21 Tampa Bay.
All right, Parker, what are you thinking?
I think that something happened at halftime of the Colts-Buccaneers game, and it was the wake-up call for Tom Brady and this team. I think they were kind of coasting through the portion of the season up until last week. I think they realized that this was a Colts team that was gaining confidence and felt like we can give it to this team, and maybe they could sense the eyes around the league, especially fans watching that score and being like, maybe the Bucs are on a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. But, of course, Brady turns it up a notch. They come back. Leonard Fournette looked great. Their O-line looked really good against a really good Colts front, as we talk about a lot. And I got to go with the Buccaneers. Brady in December, I think they're going to turn it up a notch after that. And I think they also see a Packers and Cardinals teams that are looking really good. And that's going to fire them up just a little extra because they are not really in that fight for the 1 seed right now.
All right, Drew, give me your opinions.
All right. So, first of all, the Buccaneers slapped the Falcons 48-25 the first time they played this year, and that was with Tom Brady as their leading rusher with 14 yards. So, now they have Leonard Fournette, who can run, as we saw last week. And he has a healthy set of wide receivers. But all 3 of their losses this season have been away, and the Falcons, even though they haven't beat a good team, it's their time. Falcons in this one by a game-winning field goal.
I respect it.
You know, I am really tempted to pick Atlanta here because this is just kind of the season that the NFL has had. I mean, this would, to me, would be the biggest upset of the week. And it always seems like there's a huge upset like every week. I mean, like when the Jets beat the Titans, that was seen as a huge thing. You know, obviously, when Jags beat the Bills, that was seen as like the huge thing. They're all all those games are being called like the upset of the year. And we've had a lot of upsets of the year. This would be another one, I think. I mean, my heart is telling me to pick Atlanta just because, again, that's the season it's been, but I have really no logic to back that up. I'm going to have to go Tampa Bay, just purely because the Buccaneers, the Atlanta has won against no teams above 500 this year, and the Buccaneers, I think, are going to have a lot of momentum coming off Indianapolis, are going to start rolling, and I'll go Tampa Bay. Maybe Atlanta keeps it close, but I'm going to have to go with the Bucs.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Tampa Bay as well. Look, it's a Falcons team that isn't very talented at all. Like, they definitely do have some weapons offensively when they're healthy. And I like the way that they utilize their guys. You know, they're not afraid to actually get, like, outside the norm of what a typical NFL roster makeup would look like. But, yeah, it's got to be the Buccaneers. They're a team that's just infinitely better coached. You look at their entire staff. It's riddled with guys who were coaches, could be coaches. It's a very good Buccaneers team. I like the points that Parker kind of brought up. I think that Colts win showed a lot about the Buccaneers. It showed them they're still a top 3 team in the NFC for sure. And they're not going to go away anytime soon. In fact, I actually think what happened last year is happening this year with the Buccaneers again. I think people are starting to forget about them. They're maybe not believing in them. And I think the Buccaneers are still right there in the NFC. And I don't think that they should just be tossed to the wayside. I think that they're certainly there in the Super Bowl mix. So we're going to transition into another game. That's going to be the Eagles and the Jets. Not much to say about this game. Nolan, why don't you give me your thoughts?
Jalen Hurts is limited. He obviously did not play good at all last week. If Jalen Hurts is out, give me the New York Jets. I'll take the New York Jets against Gardner Minshew. I don't think there's going to be any Minshew magic in Philadelphia. I think the Jets, when teams are kind of banged up, like, I mean, the Eagles, they don't have a ton of injuries, but they're a little banged up. And, you know, the New York Jets, for whatever reason, they kind of take advantage of teams like that. And, again, it's just been that kind of season. I'll take the Eagles here in a close one. But if Jalen Hurts doesn't play or is severely limited, I'll take the New York Jets all the way.
Okay, Drew, what are you thinking?
I'm actually going to go to the complete opposite of Nolan. If Jalen Hurts plays, give me the Jets. If Minshew plays, give me the Eagles. So, Minshew Mania, not specifically Minshew Mania itself, but the Eagles have a history of pulling random stuff out of their you-know-whats with backup quarterbacks. And this is the perfect game for them to do it because the Jets aren't an amazing team, especially since they aren't starting Mike White anymore. And I'm taking the Eagles here. I don't think that's an upset no matter who they put at quarterback.
All right, Ethan, what do you think of this?
I'm going to go the opposite of both of you. I'm going to say if Jalen Hurts plays, give me the Jets. If Gardner Minshew plays, give me the Jets. That's right. I'm going the Jets. I say Zach Wilson finally plays like he's an actual NFL quarterback in the number 2 overall pick. To an extent, although an improved passer this year, Jalen Hurts, I mean, the reason he's so effective, I think, as a passer is because of his running ability. I mean, he's still trying to mature, still trying to figure out, the NFL offense a little bit. He's played for, I think it's coming up on 1 full year as a starter. But if he's limited, that's problematic, and it's in New York. And the last time I watched a game that was in New York's, like in the Jets stadium, it was the Bengals one. We all know how that went. So I'll just take the Jets because why not? No.
All right, Chris, give me your.
So I think
opinion.
we're missing out on one of the most ultimate meme games of all time. Mike White versus Gardner Minshew. Minshew Magic versus the GOAT Mike White. Literally the greatest football player of all time, no debate.
I'd fly out for that.
So I would have to go I'm going to go with the Eagles here, especially if Minshew plays. I think he throws for 350 and 4 touchdowns, 0 picks,
Wow.
100% completion percentage.
Fair enough.
Yep. You heard it here first. Hot take of the day.
Putting money on it right now.
Yep.
I think this will be a really good game. I think the Jets play a ton better at home, and I think they weirdly are playing better as the season's going on, even if it's still not great. They're a young team. They're kind of figuring out some bumps along the road, learning how to lose. But let me read off some stats to you. When the Jacksonville Jaguars had Gardner Minshew at quarterback, he started 20 games for them over 2 seasons. He threw for 37 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. With terrible Jacksonville Jaguar teams. This was after they had made the playoff run in 2017. So these are bad teams. 37 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I've always been a fan. Even when the Patriots were having quarterback troubles, wasn't sure if Mac was going to get picked up, I wanted them to trade for Minshew because I think he's a really solid quarterback, had a great college career. So I was going to take the Eagles even if Jalen Hurts started. I almost love it more with Gardner Minshew starting. That's how much I like him. Now, he could look rusty this week because this is his first start of the season, but I like Minshew long-term for someone, honestly.
After that loss that the Eagles took last week, I don't think I can pick them again, at least this week. It seems like team chemistry is a bit off. Everything happening with Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith was a little bit upset after not getting the ball in some of the final plays. I think Jalen Hurts is showing that he's going through struggles as a quarterback, and it doesn't help when Jalen Reagor drops 2 clutch passes that, you need those. You got to catch those passes. There's no excuse. I think I like the Jets in this game. They're the Jets. They're in New York. They're probably going to take this game. It's a toss-em game, so pick whoever you want. There's just not a lot here for me to break down. You know what I'm saying? So, let's talk about the Cardinals and the Bears in a game where Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, they're practicing. They're probably going to play against the Bears, of course. So, Parker, give me your thoughts. Give me your wisdom.
Boy, I mean, this is just one where it's obviously Cardinals, so I try to imagine and visualize a way in which the Bears could somehow win that game. And even if the Cardinals just play downright bad, Kyler, even off an injury, is usually able to just figure out a way to win a messy game. And he has had several of those in the NFC West over the years. So I got to take the Cardinals. My hands are tied. The Cardinals against Matt Nagy, I mean, I know the Bears' defense is their strength, but especially after that performance against the Lions, and of course with this NFL season that it would almost say to pick the opposite, like they're going to have a bounce back week, not with a Matt Nagy-led team, though. Taking the Cards.
Chris, I know you're a big Matt Nagy fan.
Oh, yeah. Great coach.
So,
So much
what do you
so
make of it?
that his son's high school team chanted Fire Nagy at. Anyways, so I always mention certain 2 words when it comes to games like this.
I was waiting for it.
This is my trap game of the week. This makes no sense whatsoever, but I'm saying the Bears win this game. No logical reasoning points toward it, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of logic to that. I'll say that. So, Ethan, why don't you give me some logic in this game?
Okay, I'll give you some logic. So I have seen this happen before. What happens is I just saw last year, Kyler Murray, he gets injured against the Seahawks. He was on a historic running streak. I mean, he had 9 rushing touchdowns for like 8 games, like 700 yards. He was going to destroy like Lamar Jackson's rushing records, all of that. And then he gets injured on the 4th down play against the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. Always remember it. And then they just start struggling. I'll know it because he's on my fantasy team. He started playing so bad. I mean, they lost to the Patriots 20-17 in a terrible game, and they lost to the Rams. He finally started getting back, but then he got hurt against 49ers, and they lost that last game against the Rams, which he barely played. But I can't count Kyler out. I mean, he's just like he hasn't had to use his rushing. That's why I'm going to give him, like, if this is last year's Kyler Murray, I'm giving it to the Bears. However, he is probably the most improved passer in the NFL. He has not had to use his legs at all, and we've seen from this Arizona team that they can win without him. Like they're just a good team. I mean, they had that one loss against Carolina, but they beat now a pretty good 49ers team. They kind of dismantled them, and a Seahawks team, although their record doesn't show it, they're always just they're not a terrible team. They're not a bottom barrel team. They're an all right football team. So. Justin Fields, he is questionable. I know he didn't participate because of his ribs today, I want to say he didn't participate today in practice, but even with Dalton or whatever, you give me the Cardinals. Kyler's going to hopefully have a bounce-back game, good game, all that.
If they would have made me go first, I was going to beat Chris to saying trap game. I was going to ask you if this was a trap game. Because I think it's a trap game. I'm not saying that the Bears beat the Cardinals. I think that they scare them a lot, though, because I think that this is a defensive matchup. Both of these teams have great defenses. Kyler Murray, I think, is going to be limited as much as I love him. However, I'll take the Cardinals by a touchdown.
This is an Arizona Cardinals team that has not lost once on the road yet this season. And they have a plus 101 point differential on the road this season. I think maybe the most underrated. We all talk about Kyler Murray and kind of how high-flying and high-powered this offense was, especially at the beginning of the year. I really think the part that's underlooked the most is their defense. Their defense is top 5 in the league statistically, and they're just not giving up a lot of points to kind of lower-end teams like the Bears. Sorry, no, I don't mean to diss the Bears there, but
he did.
The Arizona Cardinals, I just think that a lot of people are still kind of underrating them almost. And I still kind of think a lot of people are waiting for them to fall off, and I really don't think it's going to happen. I think that they are a top team in the NFC this year and that they have a legitimate chance at a Super Bowl. So I'm going to go Arizona here against the Chicago Bears. I don't think it's going to be particularly close either.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to agree. I don't think it's going to be particularly close either. Two teams in opposite directions right now. The Bears are a team where you just have you know what you're getting with the Bears, and that's a bad team. They're a team that lacks really any sort of offensive identity. They try to run the ball, and sometimes they can get it going, but really, whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Dalton, Mike Glennon, Justin Fields, it's just really a bad team that can't play call. So. Yeah, give me the Arizona Cardinals. So now moving on into another game, the Chargers and the Bengals. Two teams on the rise in terms of the whole NFL future. So how about we start with Nolan?
See, I think that this is my toughest game of the week to predict because the Chargers have to be the most inconsistent team in all of football. Just when you think that they're going to start getting good again and you think that, okay, this is a team that, a lot of people kind of expected to pick it up and kind of be a playoff contender, if not a Super Bowl contender, and then they get going for a few weeks and then they drop off. And, that Broncos loss was bad. It was a bad loss. I think, who was it earlier this year? I think it was against the Ravens. They had another loss that just was bad. And I think that they're going to bounce back, though. I think the Cincinnati Bengals team, a lot of people are saying they're kind of back to form, but they played a Steelers team who I'm really not convinced is very good. And I think the Raiders team, who is also just super up and down, I don't know if they're necessarily 6-5 talent-wise. I think the Chargers, this is going to be another shootout. The Chargers can't stop anybody. Their defense is just terrible, and that kind of scares me with how well Joe Mixon has been playing. But I'll go the Chargers here. I think the Chargers stick in somewhat of an upset. I think it's going to be a close game. I'll take Chargers by 3.
All right. Drew, what do you think?
Just like he said, it's going to be a shootout. These are two defenses that have not been particularly great recently, and I think that the Herbert Burrow conversation is one that I think is pretty interesting because I just saw on ESPN they were posting they posted a discussion question that's like who's been better since the beginning of their career between Burrow and Herbert in their sophomore year. I'd still argue as Herbert. Burrow is definitely showing some good signs this year. I think the Chargers record doesn't show like how good they are. I think it's a shootout, but I think that the Chargers win a 37-29 type of game.
All right, Ethan.
I've said it before, I said it again. I'll say it again, rather. Best young team in the NFL, the Cincinnati Bengals squad. I mean, that Cincy crowd goes crazy. 2 words, mix and magic. I think, I'm going to have to go with everyone else here. Shootout, but unlike those two, I will say the Bengals. My Sunday game of the game of the day on Sunday for me, but I think it's like pretty easy for me to pick which would be the Bengals. So give me the Bengals.
So I think this game is the second best game of the week. I think our Monday night game, which we'll discuss later, is the best game of the week. But I think that this is really a toss-up kind of game. My fantasy teams really want me to say the Chargers, but as long as their offense plays well, I don't really care what happens on the other side of the ball. I think the Bengals defense, although Drew said they have struggled, which they did, they gave up 34 to the Jets and the GOAT, Mike White, and 41 points to Baker Mayfield and the struggling Browns. After that, they gave up 13 to a reeling Las Vegas team and 10 to Pittsburgh. Now, say what you want about Big Ben and anything that's happening over there. Only giving up 10 points, and basically the touchdown was in garbage time. So I think their defense has been playing well the last few weeks. With that said, I think it's going to be a shootout, but I think Cincinnati takes it about 35-27.
I gotta say, all over any social media or sports media, I'm seeing a lot of slander of the Chargers. I think their play calling is very suspect. Obviously, their defense is horrendous. For some reason, Kenneth Murray only played 9% of their snaps last week at middle linebacker. He was a first-round pick. So there's just a lot that isn't making sense. Their D-line outside of Bosa is horrendous. That being said, I just got to take them here. I have to take the Chargers here because it's such a letdown game for the Bengals. They're riding so high right now, and this season has just humbled everyone. And in the great words of Chris, there's no logic behind this, but it's Chargers.
I got to go with the Bengals here because the Chargers' run defense is terrible, and that's how the Patriots took advantage of them, and that's how every other team in the NFL is going to take advantage of this Chargers team. Brandon Staley is running a defense that his players cannot run. It doesn't make sense. It's like essentially a version of a cover 2, and you put a lot of confidence in your D-line to be able to stop the run, but, the linebackers aren't really, helping to stop the run. They don't really, fill those gaps particularly well. So the Chargers defense is very bad, and although Staley does not have the personnel to run his defense, that's where the great coaches in this league are going to change things up. And so far in his first year, he has not changed much up. He's just really relying on his secondary a lot to be great. And, it's good, but just the way he's running things down there just, to me, does not make a lot of sense. So we're going to do 2 more games. So let's talk about let's do 49ers and Seahawks, because this game is going to say a lot about the 49ers. And it's going to say truly just how bad the Seahawks are, if they're really that bad. So this time, let's start off with Parker.
I think what everyone is seeing this year is a Seahawks roster that has been poorly constructed by front office, and it is run by a head coach that runs an archaic offense that players have been, anonymously saying that other teams are calling out their plays. This has been happening the last couple years. I think that Russ has kept this team together the last couple of years to make it look great. And obviously they have DK, they have Lockett, that's huge. But outside of that, I really don't like their weapons. The running game is atrocious. Their O-line has never really been good really after the Super Bowl era Legion of Boom Seahawks. I just haven't been impressed with their O-line. All of that scares me. I think the Niners are just turning into a really good team that can win, grinded out games, score a lot of points without having to pass the ball. And even though they're going to be, I believe for sure without Deebo Samuel this week, I still really don't have a problem with picking the Niners here pretty easily because the Seahawks, even though it scares me Russ at home, but I still got to take the Niners.
I have to agree. Not much really to say about Seattle. I think Russ has been burning everything he's been assigned to cook this season. He's been underwhelming at best. The Packers shut him out. He scored 15 against the football team's defense. We know what the football team's defense is. Horrible. He's never throwing the ball to DK. In that last play where he threw the pick, trying to force that pass in the 2-point, DK was wide open on the other side. You guys saw that, right?
Well, real quick, do you think that's because Russ, doesn't care? Because that's not a very Russell Wilson thing to do.
I know. I'm just saying.
What's your opinion on that? Do you think?
I
it's
think
because
he's
he doesn't
just
care?
not been that good this year. I don't really think he's 100% healthy either, because we haven't seen him play this bad probably ever.
Well,
He's always been a top quarterback in the league, and I think, like you were saying, he's kind of been masking problems for a few years that they've had.
I mean, all I'm going to
So-
say.
I think San Fran is rolling right now. They scored 34 points last week. They've won 4 of their last 5. They've been putting up a lot of points in all but one of their games against Arizona, who's a truly elite team. So I gotta go with the 49ers about 31-13.
All right, Drew, what were you going to add in?
All right, so one, we see this every year with Russell Wilson where he starts with this amazing run and then he kind of just falls off into mediocrity. Number 2, I don't think that people underestimate the extent of the injury that he had and how much that can affect his throwing and his ability to complete passes. And obviously everything that comes with passing comes through even with that middle finger, because that's a gripper right there.
But reading the defense, though?
Yeah, see, that's what we have. That's what we didn't expect to see with Russell Wilson coming back, is that struggle to be able to read defenses.
And say this is the worst Russell Wilson we've seen of his career. Look at how bad the Seahawks are. They have 3 wins. And obviously he didn't play several weeks, but they look awful right now. And Russ is playing the worst he's ever played, and they look awful. So it just shows he's been carrying them. Even I do agree he's trailed off as seasons go on, but this is completely out of character. He at least looks decent in those. It's just their game plan is so terrible. Pete Carroll, look out, sir. That's all I have to say.
I think he's safe for at least probably this season. I think if next year goes rough, just because even if it was, like we said, masked by Russell Wilson for years, he's had a lot of success there. I feel like they're going to, out of loyalty, give him one more shot.
But has he had success? Yeah, but has he had the success that he should have had? That I would say no.
He's starting to become a Mike McCarthy situation, where he had that Super Bowl and hasn't done much since, and that wasn't even really his doing.
What I'm going to preface, my pick here is just, the Niners, their win streak of 3 games here started against the Rams, who obviously we've seen in the past 3 weeks have not been that great anymore. I don't know what happened to them, but the Rams just haven't been themselves lately. Then they get a win against the Jaguars, and then you get a very close win against Minnesota. So I don't think the Niners are as hot as people make them out to be. Yeah, they're on a 3-game win streak. They always play bad against Seattle, though. The Seahawks always just seem to have their number. The Seahawks have won 14 out of the last 16 matchups between San Francisco and the Niners. Those wins were when they had the 2019 defense, which was off the charts. And but I'm not going to pick Seattle just because I think that it's almost like a lost season now in Seattle. The fact that they didn't win against Washington. Maybe they get a little momentum if they can push that into overtime and win it. But the fact that they lost that game, I think Russell Wilson, not just Russell Wilson, but the entire team, it's kind of like a lost season now. You're probably not going to get in the playoffs. And I really think that Russell Wilson wants out of there. I think that we heard rumors last season that didn't really amount to anything. I think this season especially we will see a move. I think Russell Wilson is done there. The Seahawks really just don't have a lot for the future, I believe. And there's obviously a lot of discontent with DK Metcalf not getting the football. I mean, I'll pick the Niners here, but again, the Seahawks always play them, really close, so I could see maybe Seattle getting kind of could this be the trap game that everybody thinks San Francisco has this in the bag and Seattle really plays them close?
See, in my opinion, Seattle is showing NFL GMs how to not run a football team. Because the second you have a franchise quarterback and you're going to make the move to pay him a lot of money, you have to be perfect, essentially perfect when you're drafting. And if you're not perfect, then you're just not going to be able to have an elite team. Because now you don't have the money to pay other aspects of your team, like the offensive line, because $20 million of that could be going to the offensive lineman is going to Russell Wilson, which is deservingly so. But I'm just saying, when you pay that franchise quarterback, you have to be almost perfect. And it's kind of like the Seahawks obviously are far from perfect, and their moves are trading away draft picks to go and get Jamal Adams, which, to be honest, just wasn't a good move. Even at that time, safeties aren't as valuable as they once were. Go and get a wide receiver, go and get an offensive lineman. I just don't agree with trading for Jamal Adams. So, yeah, I mean, I'll probably pick the Seahawks to lose the rest of their games the rest of the year, as long as they're not versing too bad of a team. So I'm going to be taking the 49ers.
Yeah,
I'm taking the Seahawks.
I'll agree.
I can't, though. You might be able
I am.
to.
They're at home.
I cannot.
Russell Wilson's going to figure it out with DK.
They have essentially no running back.
Yeah, Alex Collins is not good.
And they just signed AP, right?
Yeah, he's on their practice
There you
squad.
go, 200 yards out of him, maybe.
He's on their practice squad, though.
I'm
that
like
your
not
hot take
confident
of
at
the
all
day?
in this pick, but Seahawks at home against the Niners just seems like I feel like it has to happen.
Just to kind of echo what you said, though, Matt, I will agree. This is kind of a situation where, when you go all in and when you're in that win now mentality and it just doesn't pay off. Yeah, they got to a Super Bowl, or yeah, they won a Super Bowl. Yeah, they got to 2 Super Bowls, but I mean, really, they've kind of lost their future for a team now that's just not very good and not in a good situation for the future. So I think the Seahawks team was going to hurt for probably the next 5 years just because they went all in to win and it didn't really work out except for 2013.
And I think what the Seahawks are going through right now is what the Chiefs will be going through in about 3 to 4 years. Because, man, are they paying Mahomes a lot. And Andy Reid is not the most perfect guy when it comes to drafting. And he certainly has a huge role in drafting his players, unlike other coaches. So we're going to have to see how those two teams turn out. Other than that, we're going to do our final thoughts now. And our final thoughts are going to be the best college football game of the week. A lot of bowl games going on, obviously. So, I mean, does anyone want to go first? Because we got a lot of good picks. Ethan, go ahead.
All right. I didn't say anything last time, so 49ers. But, yeah.
My bad.
No, you're good. We were jumping around. I don't really care. I think everyone, there's a bunch of, it's championship week. I think, everyone's going to pick all the big ones. I'm going to do the AAC championship. I'm going to do Cincinnati versus Houston just because I want to see a non-Power 5 team get in the playoff. And unless the committee really hates Cincinnati that much, a win here should cement them in the playoffs. So that is my game of the week.
All right. Parker, I bet you got a good game of the week.
It pains me to take the Georgia-Alabama game. It's so obvious. It hurts that I'm taking it. And everything, I have to take Alabama. I'm going to pick. I got to take Alabama. Georgia's a 6.5-point favorite. And, this has happened in the past where Georgia's been a really dominant team. And Alabama, who their stock's kind of been plummeting. It's funny, they're number 3, but really in the eyes of anyone who's been watching their games, their stock has been plummeting. They've looked really sus, which is exactly why it would make so much sense for Nick Saban to come out, have these guys ready, have a perfect game plan drawn up. What it really comes down to is I just trust Nick Saban. I mean, Kirby Smart was his defensive coordinator. He just always has that little edge on him, I feel like. And even though Georgia did beat them this year, and Georgia, to me, is deservedly the number 1 team and should stay in the playoff even if they lose this game, I'm going to take Bama in that. And I think it's a great game.
So who would be the number 1 team in the playoffs then if that came to fruition where Bama won?
Obviously, there's a lot of different moving parts that could happen. I think Michigan could very easily end up at number 1. I think they're super impressive. I don't want to talk about every team that's playing this weekend, but Alabama, I don't think should be 1 after that if Michigan wins. But this is probably one of my favorite playoffs ever.
Because it's finally different.
Yeah,
it's something
because
new.
there is a lot of implications that could happen in this final weekend, and I think a lot of the games would be good.
Yeah. Chris, what are you thinking?
So I'm going to go with the Big 12 championship, Oklahoma State versus Baylor. I think that if Oklahoma State wins, they get into the playoff. I think it's more of a win-and-in scenario because I think whoever loses, especially if it's Alabama for sure, they're not making the playoff if they lose. 2 losses won't get them in. Like, if Baylor wins, I don't think, unless everything goes right. I actually saw something on a social media site that I don't think I'm allowed to say on here. But anyway, I saw this crazy scenario where somehow Iowa makes the playoff if certain things go, like, every way possible.
Good God.
Now, there's no way that is going to happen. But I think I'm going to take Oklahoma State in this game. I just think that the fact that they see the light at the end of the tunnel, they're going to win.
All right. Nolan, what are you thinking?
Well, I hate to take the same game that somebody's already taken, but I'm also going to go Oklahoma State Baylor just because I 100% agree with Chris. I did see that Iowa thing too. That is 100% not going to happen. Even if everything that happened in that scenario that they listed, Iowa's not going to make the playoffs. Just sorry, any Iowa fans, it's not going to happen. But Oklahoma State, this is what worries me a little bit because if Oklahoma State wins, I also believe they're going to be in. I think that this committee is, especially if Alabama wins and Oklahoma State wins, I think that this committee will choose to kick out Oklahoma State choose to kick out Cincinnati rather than keep Oklahoma State out, which sucks because I really want to see Cincinnati in the playoffs, and I think they deserve to be in the playoffs. I know not a lot of people agree with me. I think that a lot of people think Cincinnati would be an easy out for these teams, which I disagree. But, man, I just do not want to see a Georgia-Alabama championship game, and I think that that's what the committee would love to set up. I think we were talking about, you said what happens if Alabama wins. I think if Bama wins, the committee would love to stick Alabama right at the top, right at number 1. They'll keep Michigan 2. They'll throw Georgia 3 because they want an Alabama-Georgia national championship game. And, man, that would just pay me to see this year of parity just end up with that again. But, yeah, I'll go Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State does take care of Baylor in my game of the week. Circling back to that. So, yeah, I'll take Oklahoma State over Baylor. Should be a good one there.
I'll make mine real quick. It's more of a parlay. I'm gonna take Big Ten as my game to watch because I think that Iowa wins against Michigan. And then with Oklahoma State winning, that would put them in the playoffs at 4. That would put Cincinnati at 3 when they beat Houston. And then I think Georgia beats Alabama, so Georgia stays 1, Bama goes 2.
So a lot of obviously interesting picks. I think in terms of actual game that I'm most looking forward to watching, it would have to be Georgia and Alabama just because it is going to be probably the best game. I mean, other than that, I think Oregon and Utah would be a good game. I actually called Utah beating Oregon
a couple
I weeks
remember
ago.
that.
Yeah.
You said that they would win by a lot, and they won, 37-3?
Yeah, I mean, they got the win because I don't know if I can trust this Oregon team. Just kind of the way things seem to go. But I will say I don't really have a game that I would specifically want to watch, but I do think Cincinnati misses the playoffs because the committee won't put them in. But on that note, thank you for listening to Hawk Talk on 91.7 The Edge, WSUW Whitewater. It's been a great show, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.